What makes Shunsui one of the most fascinating captains in Bleach isn't just his strength, it's the weight he carries, from his family ties to the burdens of leadership. Shunsui's journey is about more than battles. It's about responsibility, loyalty, and the price of compassion. Today, we're breaking down his evolution, from the easygoing, sake-loving captain of the 8th Division to the man who inherited Yamamoto's mantle as the captain commander. And if you want to carry the mantle for Cafe Zealot, subscribe, like the video, and turn on alerts. My next milestone is 5,000 subscribers here at Cafe Zealot, so every bit of support helps this channel grow and tells the YouTube algorithm that we are alive and kicking, so thank you. Chojiro died without ever showing his full potential. His Bankai was stolen and used against Yamamoto, who avenged him, declaring Chojiro's Bankai was not this weak. Yachiro Unohana, once the most feared of the original Gotei 13, lived as a healer, never revealing her true nature. She never drew her blade to defend Soul Society, and when she finally did, it was to pass on the title of Kenpachi to Zaraki, and sacrificing herself in the end to unlock his true potential. Jushiro Ukitake, he was the moral anchor of the Gotei 13, bore an incurable illness for years. The right hand of the Soul King, Mimihagi. He kept him alive, and in the end, Ukitake gave his life to let Mimihagi replace the Soul King and maintain balance after the Ryo was cut down. Sajin Kamamura, we've talked about this in a previous video of mine. He was the loyal dog of Yamamoto, and he paid the price for vengeance, using a Forbidden Clan technique, sacrificing his humanity forever in service to the Soul Society. These sacrifices reveal the crushing weight carried by those closest to Yamamoto, but it also shows what they're willing to pay to uphold Soul Society. And now only one remains. Shunsui Kyōraku. Let's break down our flower kimono captain, deconstructing how his acceptance of suffering led him to understand why he is so strong, closing his karmic circle back to where it all began.
Save some for later, my sweet Nanao. Lovely, lovely Nanao.
Shunsui is the second son of the Kyōraku noble family. His older brother married into the Issei clan, making Shunsui an uncle to Nanao Issei. Under his laid-back exterior, Shunsui is one of the most elite Shinigami in the history of the Gotei 13. He and Jushiro Ukitake were prodigies of Yamamoto's first Shinigami Academy class, and the first captains of their generation. Shunsui presents himself as a lover of sake, festivals, and flirtation, but beneath that charm lies compassion and sharp perception. He avoids violence when possible, but will use deception if the stakes demand it. Despite his noble birth and power, his defining trait is his humanity. He treats allies like old friends and family like treasure. Decades ago, he took Lisa Yadamaro as his lieutenant. Shunsui's relationship with Lisa reflected the easygoing yet respectful dynamic he often cultivated with those closest to him. As captain of the 8th Division, he valued her sharp wit, blunt honesty, and steady presence, traits that balanced his own laid-back nature, even being a bit perverted like him. Lisa wasn't afraid to call him out on his flirtatious banter, and in turn, he trusted her judgment both in battle and in daily operations, even being trusted as an older sister type to Nanao, who up until her going into hiding with the other visor, Lisa would read to her monthly. Shunsui and Lisa's mutual respect created a camaraderie that blurred the line between captain and lieutenant, setting a standard for how Shunsui would later guide and protect his niece, who would step into the same seat. We can start deconstructing Shunsui from his encounter with Chad in chapter 106 of the Soul Society arc. Instead of immediately drawing his blades, Shunsui tries to de-escalate. After a shower of rose petals, he says he'd prefer not to fight. Chad tells him that's not possible, and then Shunsui does something entirely unexpected. He sits down, pulls out a jug of sake and 2 cups, and offers to share a drink with the enemy. What stands out here, and what Kubo's paneling captures perfectly, is the aura Shunsui gives off. Chad respectfully asks Shunsui to move, and Shunsui's calm reply, "And if I say no," carries more weight than any threat. Chad fires off a few blasts, but Shunsui casually tells him they'll never hit. The conversation between them reflects the title of the chapter, Cause to Confront, as Shunsui gauges Chad's true purpose. He doesn't buy Chad's first excuse about helping Rukia, pointing out how she'd only been in the world of the living for a short time. Chad's real answer, that he's fighting because Ichigo is fighting, earns a different reaction. Shunsui draws his dual Zanpakutō and says he must kill him then, but the fight ends differently. When Nanao arrives with news of Aizen's murder, she finds Chad alive. She offers to finish him off, but Shunsui catches her wrist before she can release her Kido, telling her this is not a job for a young lady. He reasons that they don't know who killed Aizen, and there's no justice in killing someone whose only crime is fighting for a friend. Instead, he orders 4th Division medics to take Chad into custody and treat his injuries. This isn't mercy for mercy's sake, it's responsibility. If you have the power to kill, you also have the responsibility to decide if it's necessary. Shunsui understands exactly what drives Chad. Earlier, he was puzzled why a human would risk his life for Rukia, but hearing Chad's real reason, repaying Ichigo's friendship, that drew a smile. Shunsui recognizes that bond because he lives by it. To Shunsui, loyalty is sacred. Friendship is life. Even an enemy's life is sacred. That same principle, weighing the value of life versus purpose before raising his blade, follows him into every battle. And it's why his duel with Coyote Starrk isn't just a clash of power, it's a clash of philosophies, as we see Shunsui's actions evolve in the face of a far more powerful opponent. Somewhere in our alternative universe, Shunsui and Starrk are sipping sake and watching clouds drift by. So many of the mannerisms we saw in Shunsui's fight with Chad echo in his battle with Starrk. When Starrk says Shunsui's acting out of character, it ties back to Shunsui's sense of duty and perception. Every move he makes is based on observing Starrk's strength. The standing Sero, his hat getting sliced, even starting the fight with his kimono still on. Each step feels calculated, setting up his Shikai. He fights at Starrk's level, but makes it clear he's not here to play games. One of the most important moments comes when Shunsui talks to Ukitake about using his Bankai. We know both of them are insanely powerful. They even stepped up to confront Yamamoto back in the Soul Society arc. But Shunsui's Bankai isn't built for group fights. Using it risks everyone around him. That restriction raises the stakes of the battle. He's limited in his tools, but not in his discipline. For a man who carries so many burdens, this restraint of not using his Bankai shows how well he understands the weight his power puts on others. After Haribel fell to Toshiro's Bankai, Starrk asks about the young captain. Shunsui says that maybe in 100 years Toshiro will possibly be stronger than he is. And Starrk also asks about Shunsui's Bankai. It's an innocent question on the surface, but this is the realization for Shunsui that Starrk is a threat that must be eliminated. Starrk and Shunsui both know loneliness, but where Shunsui has accepted his power, Starrk became so strong no one could stand beside him without breaking. That isolation turned into detachment, and detachment into apathy. He fights not out of conviction, but because Aizen gave him the closest thing to camaraderie he's ever had. He was so alone, he split himself into two, Starrk and Lille, only becoming whole again for his resurrection. Normally, that level of firepower would call for a Bankai, but Shunsui's convictions make the difference. Even after Wonder Whis injures Ukitake and Shunsui takes a hit, Rose and Love step in. They buy Shunsui the time he needs to recover and set up his Shikai for the final push. Shunsui once asked Starrk if he mourned his comrades, like back in Wako Mundo when Aranyero fell and Lille questioned him. Stark's detachment left him unsure on how to act, even as the number one, the leader. And when Shunsui finally cuts him down, Starrk sees Aizen's back, not mourning a single espada. And maybe realizes in his last moment that all he ever wanted was to be with his comrades again. Seeing Aizen standing by himself, not looking back, not mourning anyone's death, it makes him realize, in my opinion, that he no longer is the strongest. Free from the power and duty he couldn't bear, reunited in death with his comrades again. Now this is just a theory, but if the espada are created due to the Hogiku, which grants a person's inner wish, maybe this was Stark's true ending all along. When the fight ends, it's not because Shunsui is just stronger, it's because Shunsui entered the fight fully carrying the moral debt of killing and choosing to pay it. When Shunsui tells Love, losers focus too much on the means and forget the point of winning, he's calling out a flaw that comes from getting lost in the style, the technique, or the moral high ground instead of remembering the core objective, survival and victory. In context, Love is facing an enemy like Starrk, a top tier threat, and every extra second counts. And that's the difference between them. Stark's power isolated him. Shunsui's power connected him. Whether he wanted those burdens or not, he embraced them. Shunsui doesn't see himself as better than his enemies. He just understands his responsibility, his power, and what he has to fight for. Shunsui can't die. Not because he's immortal, but because he's the one who carries everyone else's burdens. Shunsui honored Chad when he raised his blade. Chad's defeat by Shunsui was the acknowledgement of a warrior respecting another warrior, but choosing to also honor that young warrior's life by not ending it too soon. Chad's ignorance and loyalty led him to that moment, and Shunsui understood that. Shunsui needed to be strong for Starrk, to release him from his suffering, showing him the responsibility that comes with power and choices. Starrk had strength for himself, but was not strong enough to shoulder the burdens of others. Starrk was not a leader, he needed to be led. What he did want was pure, even for an Espada, which was a connection, and Shunsui gave him that. Life is suffering. It's one of the Four Noble Truths. And the culmination of Shunsui's arc begins to climax during the 1,000-Year Blood War, where as a Shinigami, captain, and uncle, he puts on a performance worthy of being the strongest.
Bo. D. Da.
That voice.
Ma.
Where is it?
Falls down.
The Buddha spoke of four noble truths. The truth of suffering. Shunsui is duty bound. The truth of the cause of suffering, because Shunsui is powerful. The truth of the end of suffering, the acceptance of duty and power. The truth of the path to the end of suffering, becoming captain of the Gotei 13. For Shunsui, strength comes from embracing the highest role of burden and duty. For every connection he's lost, he's been returned tenfold. He sees not just the reward of his suffering, but how the weight can be shared among those he leads. When Shunsui takes over as Captain Commander, he wastes no time reshaping Soul Society's approach to the Quincy invasion. And right away, he breaks a few rules. He appoints not one, but two lieutenants for the 1st Division, Nanao and Genshiro, splitting their duties. Central 46 protest, calling it unprecedented, but Shunsui simply points to their own laws. A captain chooses their staff. It's a small act, but a clear message. Shunsui is not Yamamoto. The old man follows Central 46 without question. Shunsui pushes back. Then comes his first radical decision, unlocking Zaraki's full potential. He proposes training Zaraki in true Zanjutsu to awaken his real strength. Central 46 resists, reminding him that Yamamoto trained Zaraki for only a single day before stopping, afraid that if Zaraki grew too strong, he might rebel and destroy Soul Society. But Shunsui doesn't blink. The bigger danger is doing nothing. With captains wounded and enemies stronger than ever, they can't leave power on the table. So he summons Retsu Unohana, the first Kenpachi, and orders a death match to force Zaraki to evolve. He knows it will cost Unohana her life, and he accepts that guilt. Not because he wants to, but because it's necessary. Then comes his next controversy as captain, freeing Aizen. Byakuya calls it the ultimate disrespect, a betrayal of Yamamoto's memory. But Shunsui isn't thinking about tradition, he's thinking about survival. Every resource, no matter how dangerous, is worth considering, if it means protecting Soul Society. Through these choices, Shunsui defines his leadership. He keeps Yamamoto's resolve and commitment to duty, but discards his blind loyalty to Central 46. He's willing to use tools the old guard would never touch, putting his life on the line for the Soul Society. The Karmic Circle tightens. Everything Shunsui has become is rooted in the burdens he accepted from his brother and Nanao's mother. And now, his arc closes where it began, with his final evolution coming in his fight against Stern Ritter X.
Bankai. Katen Kyōkotsu. Karamatsu Shinjū.
Katen, flower heaven. The flower is impermanence, beauty that fades. In Japanese culture, flowers often symbolize life's fleeting nature. Kyōkotsu, crazy bones. This carries a sense of madness beneath the surface, bones representing the unchanging truth of morality. Karamatsu, withered pine. Pines are symbols of longevity and endurance, but withered, suggesting that time has stripped away that vitality. Shinjū, double suicide or lover suicide. In Japanese literature and kabuki theater, Shinjū is the tragic final act between two bound fates, choosing to die together rather than live apart.
This is Act 1, Tamerai Kizu no Wakachiai, in which the wounds a man inflicts on his partner appear on his own body exactly as they were inflicted.
The play binds two fates, so that pain is split and neither dies. Yet, that mirrors how Shunsui shoulders consequences that weren't originally his. His life becomes interlaced with his brother's wife and Nanao.
The curtain rises on Act 2. Zanki no Shitone. Having come to regret the wounds he inflicted on his partner, the man falls to the stage in remorse and begins to suffer an incurable illness.
Shame makes the man collapse. In family terms, it's the guilt and taboo around the Issei curse and the forbidden union that rots the household from the inside.
And before you know it, it's Act 3. Itokiri basami chizome no dobue.
Both are dragged into an inescapable flood until one spirit gives out. That reads like the aftermath. The Issei heirloom is hidden, the log closes in, and everyone is submerged by a choice that cannot be undone.
A woman's pity is cruel indeed. She pays no heed to a petulant man. Around the throat of the man she loves, there is a glistening white thread soaked in regret. At least allow me to cut away that awkwardly tangled thread of regret. Itokiri basami chizome no dobue.
The white thread coils the throat and snip. Fate is severed. Barro's head goes. In story terms, it's the brutal resolution. Nanao's mother is executed by Central 46 for losing the Shinken Hyoken. Shunsui keeps the curse responsibility so Nanao can live. It's a merciless end that stains his pure intent.
That a mere soul reaper's Bankai could ever kill the messenger of God!
Barro survived the ultimate attack of the captain, which now answers Shunsui's question about why he is so strong. It's not because of his power, it's what he carries. Before Shunsui became Captain Commander, he lost his older brother and Nanao's mother. Before she died, she gave Shunsui the family Zanpakutō. She wanted him to hold on to it and protect Nanao from the family curse. Shunsui took this duty on, which this act is what would lead to Nanao's mother being executed for losing the family treasure. As time went by, Shunsui didn't push himself into Nanao's life. Instead, he wore her mother's hairpins and his brother's hairpins and kept his kimono patterned in ways that would make her notice him. It was his way of letting her know who he was without forcing the conversation. That connection comes full circle in his fight with Barro. We're finally revealing to Nanao her Zanpakutō, Shiken Hakyoken, isn't just a strategy, it's the moment he fulfills the responsibility her mother left with him.
Garish. In fact, it's so bright I can't even see the blade. It's unsightly.
Is it really? That's good.
Shiken Hakyoken, Shin, God, divine, links directly to its role as a sacred family weapon tied to the Issei clan's religious heritage. Ken, sword, more than a weapon, a vessel of duty passed through generations. Hakyo, 8 mirrors. In Shinto symbolism, mirrors reveal truth and reflect the divine. The 8 can represent the 8 million gods. Yaoyorozo no Kami, meaning it's a weapon bound to spiritual law rather than personal will. In Ken, repetition reinforces it as a true blade, not a metaphorical power, but a tangible divine force. Shiken Hakyoken can't cut flesh. Instead, it reflects divine or supernatural power back onto its source. Against Barro, it turns the god inside him against himself. Trusting Nanao and then standing beside her in the moment that decides the battle, together, his Bankai's tragedy and her sword's divine reflection strip Barro of his power. The curtain falls, not because Shunsui overpowered a god with his power, but through learning his power is meant to be shared, closing his karmic circle and gaining the one source of power that has eluded him, a family connection.
Reflecting a god's power, eh? How very simple.
I really enjoyed Shunsui's character from start to finish. The way his power is portrayed and the discipline and suspense built around his Bankai was an amazing payoff that was only uplifted further by the anime. Let me know down in the comments section what you thought about Shunsui and his journey through Bleach from the moment we met him all the way till he became the Captain Commander of the Gotei 13. Also, that huge reveal of his Zanpakutō spirit birthing another spirit to hide Nanao Zanpakutō is absolutely wild. But that's all from me from the cafe. Peace out, zealots.